The Spoken Token is a proud member of the Pod Studio One podcast network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the big show. I'm your host, Alex Wallace.
And I'm Cynthia Wallace. Dun, dun, dun.
What? Wait a minute. How did you get in here? Wait, where's Larry? What? I want everyone to know that Larry was sitting across from me like 30 seconds ago, and then Cynthia just like pulled the mask off, and it was like a Scooby-Doo reveal.
Mission Impossible.
Oh, that's true. That's a little bit. Oh, that was a better reference. Dang it. You saw my reference and raised me one. Well done. Yes, so Larry is not in studio with us today, but the next best, actually, I would say the better version of co-hosting is my wife, Cynthia Wallace, sitting across from me today. We are talking about some really cool topics, things that we have walked through that maybe not were cool at the time. Basically, we're going to air out our dirty laundry here on our podcast, and it's Dirty Laundry Board Game Edition.
Just a little bit.
Do you have positive things to say about me?
I do.
You do?
I love you much.
Oh, much. Oh, you notice that she had to like pause and didn't have a real adjective to go in front of there because she's like, oh, I can't ridicule him on his own podcast.
That's right.
Yes. So, all right. So that's what we get when you have a married couple and your intro banter. It's just normal life for us.
I think I need to address the elephant in the room. There's one question I get from anyone that's ever met Alex. It's the same question every time. Is he like that at home?
Wait. These people don't need that. It's part of my persona.
I know. The answer is no.
Oh.
He is very quiet. And sometimes I have to get him to talk to me. And I have to, pull him out of his shell. And no, you can't go take a nap,
Oh.
So this persona stays in public. And it doesn't come home with him.
I don't know if this will actually make it. It's too real. It's too real. All right. Well, while we decide whether we're going to cut this in post or not, let's go to a break.
We want to thank the sponsors of today's episode, our friends at Van Ryder Games.
Creators of award-winning games such as the single-player Hostage Negotiator and the One vs. Many Detective City of Angels.
You can find their full catalog of games, including their graphic novel adventures, at vanrydergames.com. That's VANRYDERGAMES.com, your FLGS, or wherever you buy your games online.
All right, and we're back. It's really weird saying that, just because it's usually Larry that says those things, and now that he's not here to really, we have to say these things. I mean,
Your audience is expecting it.
I guess so. I mean, it's my mom. My mom's the only one that listens. And actually, she actually doesn't even.
She doesn't.
She doesn't listen.
I don't know if she knows how to turn a podcast on.
You might. No, actually, I had the conversation with my mom and dad just yesterday. It was like, she's got like these 30 different, streaming sites, and I don't know how to get to all of them. But she gets in there and gets all the, each one of them. So my mom is actually quite, when she wants to be,
yes.
can be computer. But that may have actually been an excuse why she doesn't listen. Oh, sweetie, I can't listen. I don't know how to turn that on.
Sure.
That may be why my mother actually doesn't listen. So I don't know how I feel about this. Larry, come back. No, all right, that was a weird entrance. But that's what happens when you have your wife on a podcast. So before we get into any of the aforementioned dirty laundry, I do want to just kind of put out here some news that, sweetheart, maybe you didn't even know about. Are you ready for some big news?
I'm ready.
Okay, so there is a publishing company called IDW. All right, have you ever heard of IDW?
No.
You haven't? Well, good thing, because they've actually stopped making board games.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's a pretty decent sized company. Now, they still do comic books and that kind of thing, but they've, for a while, had quite a bit. They're actually the people that put out Machikoro.
Okay.
So you do know them. Yeah. Machikoro. And the game, do you remember that one with the numbers?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you like that game?
If you play it with the right people, yes.
But they actually put out one of our favorite games, Sakatsu.
Oh, I do like that one.
Yeah, and so I guess we're not going to get any new Sakatsu stuff.
Bummer.
So, but hey, you know what? Sakatsu is one of the best 3-player board games that I have ever played.
100%.
100%. And actually, It only plays 3.
It's 2 or 3.
2 or 3. Yeah. And you don't find a lot of games that actually play like they stop at 3 players.
Mm-mm.
Do you have a deep knowledge of 3-player board games there, babe?
I have so much knowledge.
Don't roll your eyes at me.
I have looked at all the boxes on our shelf, and most of them say 4 players at least.
This is true. Yes, most of them do say 4 players. So you do. You look at the boxes. Do you like are the boxes pretty?
Some of them.
Do you have one that you're like, oh, I like this box? As you look around.
I'm looking.
Yes.
Yes. There are certainly ones that I'm attracted to more. I would say like Azul and Letter Tycoon, Hues and Cues.
Really? Hues and Cues?
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's just boxes of color.
I am an artist.
Throw that out there. Yes, just kind of like drop it in there for the audience. Hey, everyone, I'm an artist.
Yeah, but there are other ones that I'm like, I could deal with not looking at that every day. I think the visual aspect of it is that there's just a lot all together. So I don't really spend time looking at them individually as a whole when I'm just walking into the room.
Does box art at all like evoke anything for you where you're like, oh, you know what, I might be interested in that?
Oh yes, for sure.
Really?
It's a huge proponent of me wanting to play a game.
Really?
Mm-hmm. If I don't like how it looks visually, I don't want to spend a couple hours with it. Now, it doesn't mean that I can't be persuaded. Mm-hmm. It just means that it's not going to be the first one I pick up.
So if I really want you to play a game, I need to like disguise it. Since you don't actually know the boxes, I'll find a box that you really like. Hey, this one's like Azul on the outside, and then it's just
pretty?
Yes, and then it's just some deep, complex strategy game.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, okay. So, you know what? Let's talk about, a game that we played, you and I, together, that I think aesthetically is pretty cool. And so I'm really interested on your take on that. And that is Whistle Mountain by Bezier Games. So this was actually one of your kind of, not loftier games, but one of the heavier games that you've played recently.
Recently,
yeah. And so what did you think? What was your feel? Number one, did it pass the aesthetic test for you?
Yes, for sure. I really liked the artwork. I liked the pieces and how they felt in my hands and the colors. I felt like it had a really clear vision for how it looked, and it worked really well together.
See, none of that really. I'm like, okay, cool. It's not ugly. So
we just think about things differently. That's all.
Fair enough. All right. So the game itself, do you remember enough of it to maybe explain it? Or I think between the two of us, we could. You don't. Do you remember?
You build scaffolding.
You do.
And then you place your 3, what are they, ships?
Yeah, so there's
airships.
Yeah, you have a long airship, a medium,
and a small.
Yeah, and then like a balloon.
And you collect resources based on where you placed your ships, and then you call your ships back, and you can build or something else.
Yeah, it's a worker placement game, but it was really, and you don't typically like worker placement games.
It's not my favorite, but I liked this one because it had a really distinctive rhythm to it.
Yeah.
Where you place 3 and then you call them back. And so just, I felt like there was a lot of, instruction on and where you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah.
I think what I don't like about a lot of worker placements is the first time I ever play it, I have no idea what to do. I just feel lost. And it takes halfway through the game or maybe even through a full play before I understand it. Whereas you get it really quickly. And so I feel like I'm just
which is
in
all honesty, doesn't happen much in our normal life. She normally gets things very quickly, and it takes a lot of explaining for me. I think what I liked about Whistle Mountain specifically was that when where you placed your ships, where they were, what they were adjacent to, all of the things that your ship was adjacent to, you got to collect. So there was a little bit of kind of spatial, almost Tetris-like puzzling out, because you're like, okay, if I go here on these edges here, I can actually maximize and get quite a bit of resources and then activate this machine, because not only are you collecting things, but wherever your ship lands in the scaffolding allows you to activate a machine that triggers a particular things. So like, for instance, you could trigger a machine that like you could spend a coal and get gold, or, you know, get victory points and those kinds of things. So all of those are unique. How did you feel it was tedious having to build on the board with scaffolding and then come on top of that with the extra pieces of the machine?
Not really. I think it had a good rhythm. I think whatever my starting ability was helped me move forward faster at the beginning than everybody else.
Yeah.
So
you lapped. Well, did our friend TJ, did he win or did you win?
I won. I think.
You won, but it was close, wasn't it?
It was really close. Yeah.
Between you two. Yeah, I was miserable.
So I think my starting ability really helped me feel like I was making progress right away.
For those of you not familiar with the game, two things I kind of want to explain. So what you'll have to do first is, before you can actually put the things that let you, they're called machines that actually let you trigger off other things, make big things happen, you actually have to build scaffolding onto the board. So it's like you're laying the framework or the foundation before you can actually put the things that actually do stuff for you. And at the beginning, the resource kind of collection is a little tight. Getting what you need to do things to build those machines, it's a little difficult to actually collect what you want. But then I think about a third of the way into the game, once like the first machine comes out, resource collection, like you get way more than you actually need. And by the end, you're having these massive turns.
Right. And I think I did like that aspect of that it's puzzly, so you could kind of look through, and it's visual, which is my favorite thing. Just figuring out how to maximize to get all those resources, and so you're having big turns where you have to get rid of resources at the end of your turn.
You were having a big turn. So. So how did you, one of the things that I love about games, and especially this one, I was just on the wrong side of it. How did you feel about everyone having a different starting ability? So you and I were effectively doing totally different things within the realm of the game. As someone who doesn't play a lot of games, or play games that often, how does that feel, knowing that, like, okay, he's off doing his own thing and I'm doing my thing?
Sometimes it makes me just question, like, am I doing this right? Because a lot of times if we're playing something very similar, I can kind of ask you if I'm doing the right thing or not. Yeah. And so I just had to kind of go off on my own. And I would say when I first started playing games, that was really a struggle for me. I wanted to all be doing the same thing, but I would say I've grown in my game playing ability. So having that ability, and we had to choose. I think that was hard. Having never played the game, it might have been mentally easier to just be assigned one. But I chose wisely. You did choose.
And apparently Max, our dog, agrees with you.
Yeah.
So he felt my wife chose wisely as well.
One thing about the game that I think was surprising to me is that I expected the water level to come in a lot more than it did.
Yeah, so there's a mechanic in the game. Ultimately, there's the mechanic in which to sort of trigger the end of the game, it has this rising water level. And what happens is, as the certain things are met, the water level rises and then sort of clears out any of the earlier things that you can build. So it's a neat mechanic visually, because it has this idea like, oh, it's filling, the water is filling up, but then it allows you. So from a gameplay mechanic, it keeps you from using the earlier machines.
Right.
And so but I'm sorry, you were saying, I just wanted to explain, and Max wanted to reiterate what I was saying.
Mm-hmm. I just it's so prominent on the board visually. I expected it to come more into play, and I don't know if that's just how we played, and if we were to play again, we would build the scaffolding up higher.
Okay, so ultimately, would you play this game again?
Oh yes, for sure. I think it was one that I was able to understand pretty quickly, and so felt like I could, I did win, so but I think I learned a lot playing the first time. I'd be interested in playing again with maybe more people, and just see how that changes things.
Yeah, and I think with more people, you start to, because even at 3 players, there was quite a bit of, there were certain times where things were taken away, where you couldn't actually get what you wanted, but I never felt like I didn't have anything to do.
Right.
So that's really important to me. So, well, great. Yeah. So Cynthia and I, we played this once. We really enjoyed it. It's one I've kind of had my eye on for a while. I'm excited to play it again. It's one that, from a seasoned game player, it was complex enough where I was always interested. Choices mattered. Things were the moment-to-moment gameplay was really good. Even the scoring, it wasn't till the very end that there was a very clear winner, and so I always felt like I had a chance, even though my starting power didn't necessarily work well the way that the board started or how I used it. So I'm not even sure I used it correctly.
User error.
Yeah, user error, very, very much. But Cynthia and our friend TJ started with some things that really kind of pushed them in a direction, and I think that was helpful. So great, yeah, I recommend this. I'm looking forward to playing it again. And from a non-seasoned game, I mean, you are a seasoned gamer who doesn't play often.
Sure.
Yes, I guess that's just your kind of your.
I'm
your
an
thing.
amateur.
Yeah, but
But not a beginner.
correct. You like things that are a little bit more lighter, medium weight game.
Yes.
And this is definitely in the medium to higher medium weight game. And so your thoughts on it, just to kind of sum everything up?
Yeah, I would definitely play it again. I think there are plenty of people I'd recommend it to and some that I would not, just based on their level of gaming. But I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, great. Excellent. Well, cool. So then Cynthia and I will come and talk about some stuff that we've had to deal with in the board gaming world as far as our marriage is concerned right after this.
We're back.
Oh, wow. I think Larry may actually replace me. You do that with such grace and ease. So I'm kind of excited for us to actually sort of walk through some of the harder times that you and I have had through this hobby. When I kind of pitched this idea to you, this was sort of the reason I wanted to have you on, is I wanted the opportunity for you and I to talk about the things that we have been through so that maybe we could help somebody else sort of avoid those or mitigate them to some extent. And so one of the things that I want to kind of broach is this idea of a board game widow. For you, it was a magic widow.
Yeah.
So but that can still be magic turned into board gaming, and then
Sure.
And all of that. But so what I mean by magic widow or board game widow is you were left alone quite often.
Yes.
As
with children,
as I wanted to, because of the time magic and or board gaming took up, and I did not invite you or kind of
involve me in the process of that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's sort of walk through that and just maybe we can tell people sort of like what you felt, and then I can I don't know if I'm going to ever come out of this as anything other than a villain, but just sort of recount your experience specifically in the earlier years when our children were much littler, younger. Sure.
I think I was the one that said board game widow because that's really how I felt. I felt like my husband was gone. You would often say, okay, I'm going to be gone all day Friday, all day Saturday. And being a stay-at-home mom and spending a lot of time with very small children, I got really, really lonely at home, and I wanted my husband home, and I also did not value what you were doing, and so it felt like I was being abandoned. That's maybe a harsh word, but just you weren't taking my thoughts and needs and feelings into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think for me, what I really struggled with was the number one, I admit there was a whole level of I did not perceive the level of strain that, just kind of being on your own, and from my perspective, what I was doing was just I've worked all week. And so I'm going to come home from work and go straight and then, go to a Friday Night Magic or, right. Or go to a Saturday night board gaming thing at Dave's store. And my brain was like, oh man, I've earned this,
right.
And I think the thing for me that really, I didn't get it at first, but one of the things that when we had talked about this earlier on, while we were walking through this, was you said, I don't ever get a break.
Right.
you know, and it didn't stick with me then because I kept asking, like, you know, let me do this and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But then as I sort of walked back through it, you know, and I know a lot of people will listen to this and go, well, you know, taking care of kids isn't that hard and all this kind of stuff. It's not even really that you didn't have the capacity to take care of the kids. It just was 24/7. Mm-hmm. It was 24/7. And even just kind of that level of like, hey, just let me go to Target or something,
right.
you know, by myself. But like, no, I gotta go to this event at the store and I gotta do this stuff. And
you were going once or twice a week,
right.
So it was pretty frequent.
Yeah,
and it wasn't just being at home with kids because, you know, I would have play dates with friends or, you know, stuff like that. But it was also just the fact that you were choosing that instead of being home with our family, and so I felt like we were getting, you know, the second best of you.
Yeah. And honestly, that evaluation never came into my thought process, but it's absolutely 100% can see how that would be perceived that way.
Sure.
You know, because it's like, okay, well, I've just spent all of my work energy. Now all of my fun energy is
right.
with these random people playing a game with cardboard or, you know, and different things like that. Now, but there was also like, what did we do? How did we walk through that? I know for a while I just had to say, like, I mean, I will admit there was a level at which Magic became I became way more involved with Magic than I needed to be. And then I was spending money that I didn't need to be spending. I spent time thinking about it.
You would come home and put decks together on the days that you were home, mm-hmm. you were still playing Magic. And mm-hmm. so I really felt like it was taking over a lot of your attention and focus. And so, you know, it came to a point where you just got rid of everything because, and I don't know if it was just enough conversations or if I went away for the weekend and you had to keep the kids by yourself and it just kind of opened your eyes to, you know, what that entails or a combination of all those things. But it came to a head and you just made that decision, which sometimes you make, you know, rash. I'm just going to do this decision. I wasn't sad when you got rid of all the Magic, and I really feel like it lightened you up because you were tied to it.
Yeah. And I really understand. I think that's the closest to addicted that I've ever been to anything.
I would say yes.
Because like I would think about it all the time, and when I, you know, and then it would change my mood if I lost or if I did all of this kind of stuff, and you know, way too much time. And so we can get into a bigger conversation about addiction. And for those of you who suffer for addiction from, you know, things that are really harmful, please, I'm not making light of what you're walking through. But for me, that was something that consumed me.
Yes. It
consumed me. And you did, I would say, did get second best. And so, I for me, I just had to quit cold turkey. Honestly, it was hard for maybe about a week, and after that, it was like, oh, okay. But I still had that desire to want to play board games,
right.
to do that. And so from those dark days of kind of the Magic, so what did we do that you felt was a good compromise? How have we gotten here?
I think one of the first things you did was you said, hey, would you mind if I had some guys over to have a board game night at the house? And that was just paramount, life-changing.
Really?
For a lot of reasons, yeah. So,
see, folks, this is news to me. I didn't know this.
Just knowing that you were here and that I had a backup if I needed to.
Yeah.
Sometimes kids just need dad to lay down the law.
Yeah.
And just knowing that you were in the house, that I had someone to back up, that you could pause if you needed to. The other thing was I got to know who you were playing with. That's when I met Larry for the first time. That's when I met some of your other friends who you had known for, I mean, how long did you know Larry before I met him? Probably a couple of years.
Maybe.
A long time, because I'd heard you talk about him and you know, some other people, but I'd never met them. And so, you know, it's one thing for me to think, oh, my husband's going off to play with all these random strangers. But for another thing to say, hey, look, he's bringing these people into the house. I can get to know them. I can value them. And yeah, I want him to spend time with these people because I see the joy that it brings him. So having people over to the house was a huge, huge thing.
And I would say too, when we started bringing, what a big change for me was when it was like, you know what? I want our house to be a house of community, to a house that values community and all of that. And it was right around that time when you kind of were saying you were encouraging me to continue to do that. I was like, okay, my house can be the house where people come and play. And, and that's kind of what some of the collecting piece where it's like, I want to have something that people can always, do. But it's stemmed into, as we have gotten older, that love of community passed down to our children. And we're like, oh, we want their kids to come over here so that we can all get to know them. And, we now invite people to our house within, social norms now with the pandemic and everything, but a lot of the times outside. But, still we value experiencing board games with other people. And that's been a joy for me, and especially a growth step is like, okay, this isn't just, board gaming isn't just about me. It is because in my early years of board gaming was always about me. I wanted to recreate the video game single player mentality, but just in a social setting. And that's what Magic was. That's what the board gaming early was. It's just about me. But then when we sort of shifted the model and it became about us or about other people, I really think that was a monumental shift for both of us.
And I think related to that was when you came home and said, I found a game that I think that you will like. Because when we first started, it was all games that you wanted to play. I was not at all interested in them.
Yeah.
But when you said, I found a game, I think you're going to like it. Would you be willing to play it with me? And I think that was also a huge shift when you were starting to think about me as a person and my interests and the kind of games I like to play. Like, I grew up playing games with my family, but we mostly played card games. And I enjoyed that aspect of it. But it took a little while to figure out which tabletop board games I really am drawn to. It started with Carcassonne and then, moved out from there. And so the fact that you were thinking of me and something you wanted to do together, that was something that was really important to me, changing my mindset about board games. Because when I first started, I was pretty negative about board games.
Yeah, because it was all like I wanted a dungeon crawler. I wanted, deep strategy, things that were just bonkers. Again, I was searching for this sort of I wanted a role-playing experience and all of this. And then I had to actually kind of bring myself all the way, hey, let me just start back and then find the joy of some of these older games, that are simpler mechanics, and then really change. So what do you value now about how we share this hobby?
I think it's about us now, and not just us, me and you, but us, our whole family. And I think that is something that really has grown, obviously, as our boys have gotten bigger. But it thrills me to death when you play a game with the boys, because you're interacting with them in a way that you both are excited about. And it also takes off that entertain the children pressure off of me. And so even if I'm not playing with you, it's still something that you're doing as a family that really encourages me and makes me think more positively about board games in general. And then just I love seeing you interact with our boys in that way. It makes me appreciate you more and love you more. You're so handsome.
I'm
when
very
you play board
handsome.
games.
Yeah, very much. Okay, so here's something then. What would you say to a spouse or significant other who is currently living this? Their significant other is off playing Magic or is on playing board games online now or all this, but they're just kind of oh, okay. And I guess even to the extent video games
Sure.
are now, would be.
Well, you started off playing a lot of video games, and then I got sucked in.
Yes, she has played every Lego game there is.
No, not all of them.
I think most of them.
A lot of them.
She plays more video games than I do.
Well, I don't know if that's true. Maybe. Okay, so I would say bring the game home. Talk with your spouse, your significant other, figure out a way to bring the game into your home. Or invite them along. So
Okay, so this is you're talking specifically to the person who is excluding the other.
Yes.
Okay, so all right.
So start there.
Start there.
That's the start there. Or invite them along. So when we started doing like couples game nights, where it's friends of ours and we get together with them and we bring kids, that's just a great way to try out new things. I'm much more likely to want to try out a new game when we're doing it together. And I've got a friend who doesn't really know board games either. And so we're all kind of learning together. And then I would say, if you have kids, play with your kids for sure, whether you're including your spouse or not. And then intentionally bring home games that you think they might like. And not just like games that they might beat you in. That is really significant, because when I first started playing, I lost every single game. And it was so discouraging. I was like, well, okay, here I am again. We were playing games that you understood, or you knew the mechanic because you played something similar. And so you were just like off to the races, and I was fumbling in the dark. And then you wouldn't want to play it again. So then I'd start afresh on a new game. And now, I've played enough that I can usually catch up a lot faster than I used to be able to. But I would say the games that I really latched onto at the beginning are ones that I could do well at.
Yeah.
And so that's just paying attention to what your partner is interested in and their skills. I don't know that you've ever beat me at Enigma, because that's just in my skill set.
But you know what? I will say this: every other person I play with, I always beat them.
Well,
because I can't do the special reasoning stuff.
I know.
I can do the math things, and
I can't do the math.
See, and so
that's how to beat me. Is
Yeah.
force me to do the math.
Yeah, but the sad part is I can't do the tanagram or the other things.
Oh, the tanagrams are so easy.
The pipes sometimes, but yeah. Oh well. And then the 3-dimensional puzzle.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Oh, I hate it. It's the worst. All right.
So good.
So what would you say to the spouse or the significant other, the partner who's the widow?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them now?
I would say be honest on how you're feeling, and then look for ways that you can invite yourself into the game. So I think there have been plenty of times when you've had a game out or you had a friend over and you're like, oh, we're going to do this. And I say, can I play? And you've always been like, yeah, of course. I would love to have you play. You're always invited. But sometimes you don't verbally invite me. And so just inviting myself into the game, or even like looking at the collection and say, I'm kind of interested in this one. Do you want to sit down and play it with me? So just being really intentional about inviting yourself into the game.
I think that's huge. And I think to kind of swing back to something you said earlier, when I first started, you didn't see the value in it, and I felt it, and so it really felt like this, like me versus you type of deal. And I think had you earlier on said, "Hey, can I play?" That I think that would have snapped me out a little bit quicker. I'm not putting the onus on you by any means.
No, it's okay, because I don't care for deck building games. So Magic had no interest. It still doesn't. I don't really like deck building games.
Yeah.
So
and it not even. I mean, in that, but I think very early on, I got to the point where it's like, well, I can tell she doesn't like this or board gaming in general. So I'm not. I want to respect her space. I'm not going to force her to do something she didn't want to do. And I think it was a missed opportunity for both of us.
Absolutely.
And so I look back now and this is, how you and I interact now within the hobby, I think is something that I truly cherish. And one of the things, so I actually want to, I know Larry likes a good hard break and then some music, but I think this actually flows perfectly into our next segment, is something that I have talked a lot about to our listeners on sort of your behalf and about you to an extent, but the level at which storage has become, for a while, was a significant issue.
It was a major problem at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and
one of the reasons why I was against board games, because they take up so much space.
Yeah.
And we were in, a 1,000-foot square house,
1,000-foot square house. We were in a square house. Yeah. Our house was square. 1,000 square foot.
1,000 square foot house.
Yeah. And so so we moved all the games out into the garage.
Right.
And this was back when I thought I had to own everything.
Right. And you wanted like rare random games. So, my sister was finding them at garage sales, and you just were collecting just to have anything.
Right. And I think when it really became an issue was when we moved into our current house.
Mm-hmm.
And like we had 2 Calex shelves, and it was overwhelming that, and it started to take over a closet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you and I had some really hard conversations, because one way or another, not necessarily for the game itself, but I don't know if it was a kind of an extension of the hobby, but I valued everything that I owned.
Right.
But I wasn't playing it.
Yeah, and so what's the point?
Right. And I think those conversations, like, it sometimes was they were heated. They were heated.
Yes.
And because I didn't feel heard, I didn't felt that I value these things. Why do you not?
Right.
And so how should someone communicate to a me? Okay, so you've got a partner, you've got a spouse, because ultimately what you and I came to understand was, even though you didn't value what I had the way that I did, you were able to view or kind of sympathize with my evaluation of things. Mm-hmm. Or you said, okay, I don't agree with your value, but I see where what you're ascribing value to.
Well, I think my assumption of value has changed along with my interest in board games. The more I play, the more I see the value in them. And the more that I'm willing to, they used to be in an office, and then, which was our boys' room then, and now they're in the den, which is like you walk in the back door, and there they are. They're very much on display in a very public part of our house, which I was very against before. But I think a lot of that is my attitude on board games, but then also your willingness to curate your collection. So when I saw you being willing to get rid of games that you weren't playing or that you weren't interested in, or games we played several times and we're like, nah, this is not very fun. Before you were just wanting to hang on to it so that someone could borrow it. But that's not, a way that we want to live, because we don't have a big enough house to just keep things just because. So I think my attitude and then your willingness to pare down really helped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I will say, I mean, guys, I'm grooming her. She's come a long way. So I will say one of the highlights of our kind of our board gaming life together is when last fall, when you agreed to play The King's Dilemma.
Uh-huh.
That was, and then how much you've gotten into it.
Well, it's so different.
But the social aspect of
it's
it. It's
really fun.
Yeah, and that's been one of the cool things. And I will say, you're real cute when you get competitive.
I do get competitive.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's very ridiculous, especially when your family members are involved.
Just certain ones.
So, okay. All right. Well, we are going to take a break. Or is there anything else you want to say about storage? I mean, maybe some storage solutions that you've thought of, creative things that you yourself had to sort of grow in, walk in, or like, hey, you who collect too many board games, think about this, or...
I think I would just say, don't be afraid to let go of things that you aren't playing, because just because you don't love it, it's sitting on your shelf, it's accomplishing nothing, but somebody else might really love it, and it's a tragedy to keep it on your shelf not getting played. But the other thing I would say is just be willing to stay flexible with your storage and rethink it all the time, and just decide if this is what is best for our whole family right now. It's not just about you and your collection, and yeah, it's an investment of money and time and all that, but there are other people who live in your home probably, and so thinking of them as well and working for a solution together as a family.
Cool. Excellent. All right. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back with another fun segment. And we're back. For those of you who missed it, Cynthia had the cutest little burp right before we got on.
Oh, no, it's got to be in there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do. I kind of sneak these things in. All right, we're going to sort of finish our time together. When Cynthia and I discussed doing this together, this weird thing popped in my head. So this is our last episode for the Summer of Games. Actually, Larry sometimes goes into like October or something. It's weird. I don't even know. But I think September is when we usually end Summer of Games, but this whole summer has been about, we've been talking about role playing.
Okay.
So the activity of group imagination, playing with a set of rules and all of this kind of stuff. And I know that you have been in the other room when I have been running some role playing games.
Yes.
And I have to imagine it's gotta be weird from an outsider's perspective.
Well, at least you're not LARPing, right?
Well, yeah, that you know of. Did I ever tell you my LARPing story?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But you gotta tell it now.
I mean, I guess. Well, I wasn't really the LARPer, but when I was in college, there were these people who would meet on the in front of the library, and they would have these foam axes and swords and stuff. And I was like, I have to go meet these people. And so I went out there, and they were like, "Hey, man, you want to play?" And I'm like, yes. So being ironic, I'm like, sword fight. The dude kicked my tail. I mean, like, he wore me out, and I was tired after. Like, oh my gosh, this is a workout. But somehow I went to make a fool out of someone else and ended up making the fool of.
Story of your life.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, so yes, I have avoided LARPing since then. But our house, there have been times of tabletop role-playing sessions that you have been privy to.
Yes.
You've walked to get a glass of wine or some water or something, and then just cocked a weird eye or something.
I have never played a role-playing game.
Which I can't wait till the time where you're like, I think I'm ready. We've got to find the right people
you have
for
to
you.
find the right people, the right story.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's it is comical for sure. It is. Alex is always trying to make jokes. Most of them are no good, but you guys know that one.
I don't know if I like this segment anymore.
Sorry. I mean, it's just bizarre.
Really?
Like, yeah, because I mean, there's no board, there's no game, but there is a game. I don't know. I get that it's like a story, and it's like you're watching a movie, but you're having to come up with it on the spot. And
well, you were a theater minor. You don't think?
Yeah, it is. I guess there's a lot that you could compare to improv.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I haven't really thought about it that way.
Oh, did I crack that? Did I break your impenetrable shield?
Improv was not my best subject. Surprise, surprise. I was much better with a script.
Yes.
Though, I will say this. I was listening to one of your episodes where you were talking about role playing. Don't be that guy. Was that this last one?
Yeah.
And I thought, I actually could be a pretty good DM, I think.
I
could manage people.
You would be an amazing DM, and let me tell you why. Okay, you ready?
Why?
Okay, number one, you love rules.
I do.
Rules are very important to you. But you're also someone who values fairness.
Yes.
And so you also love inclusivity, like making sure everybody is involved, doing their part,
Having a good time.
Exactly. And I think the only thing that you would really need to do is sort of work on how do I just had a brilliant idea.
Oh.
You and I should DM something together.
Oh my goodness.
How much fun? That would be so weird.
Here's the problem.
I know. But ultimately, I genuinely think you would make a great DM from the gameplay. Now coming up with a story. I think you would have to be one of those DMs who would have to do a lot of work on the front end.
I would really have to prepare.
Yeah,
for sure. But I think I could. I think I'd be afraid of playing with you because you would make fun of me. Kind of like when I'm reading for King's Dilemma and I'm having to read all these crazy words.
Oh, but it's so cute.
I mean, there's a lot of bizarre words. I have to just make something up because I have no idea how to pronounce that.
I know, and we only make fun of you because we love you.
I know.
But the way that you plow through it and you say it with such confidence, every time it brings a joy to my heart. You know what, though? Knowing that you fear me laughing at you. Like, and I mean this in all honesty, like, I would absolutely avoid that because I can understand as a theater teacher myself, that's one of those fears that keeps people from getting on stage is someone I value is going to laugh at me.
Right.
And so all right, I will keep that in mind. Okay. Absolutely. But I actually, even from the DM standpoint, but to the player standpoint, I think that you would actually be a good role player because, again, knowing what to do, like, oh, I know you would know your character really
Sure.
well. You would have kind of this storyline. And then all you would have to do as a character is if I was the DM, I present you with a choice.
Right.
Hey, you're in this situation. What would you like to do? And that's our dog. He's super excited. He wants to role play too. But so I actually think you would do really well because ultimately as a character, all you have to really think about is what would that character do?
I felt like it was a lot of pressure to be entertaining or to
No.
do all the,
And that's actually that's a big deal is as a player, your job is not to entertain. Your job is to embody the character because then the group together tells the story together.
Sure.
And that's where the entertainment comes. The entertainment comes from you figuring out what would my character do when this shopkeeper is intentionally stealing from us. Like that's where it's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what your character would do. Or your character would come up with some creative way to solve a problem that I, as the DM, would have never thought about. And then you would be a hero. And so, wow, I think, oh my gosh, I really think, so here's what it would really come down to.
It would come down to theme.
Exactly. It's finding the right setting.
I feel like I could do a, role playing The Office. I think I could be really good at that.
I don't know if that exists just yet.
It should.
Would you? All right. Would you be a Pam?
Well, of course I'm Pam, but I could play somebody else because I know all the characters. Really well.
Okay.
I think I think I would enjoy starting off with something where I know the characters, like Harry Potter or something like or Lord of the Rings or something like that, where I'm familiar with the character. I'm not starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Just because I don't have an experience building a character. I mean, apart from like being in a play, but then you have things to go off.
But then you have the script, which kind of
informs you on.
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, cool. Well, these are all really, really wonderful. And if you have any thoughts or feelings on what Cynthia should be Cynthia's first role-playing game, please, connect with us on social media. Find us. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter and on Facebook, the Spoken Token Podcast. So, Cynthia, this has been an absolute blast. Thanks
for having me.
I think you are adorable, and I would love to see you again. Can I see you again?
Yeah. Yes, we're married. You have to.
Fair enough. Good point. Okay. Well, for the Spoken Token, I'm Alex Wallace.
And I'm Cynthia Wallace.
And I don't know how to do this without Larry, because he always says he says something, and I just say something else.
Keep communicating.
Yeah. And keep playing. There we go.
Keep playing.
Yeah. Okay. This has been the Spoken Token Podcast. If you'd like to interact with us, please contact us through email at thespokentokenpodcast@gmail.com, on Instagram at The Spoken Token Podcast, on Twitter at The Spoken Token, or on Facebook at The Spoken Token Podcast. And you can reach us through our BGG Guild, number 2656.
You are listening to a Pod Studio One Podcast Network podcast. Find more great podcasts at www.podstudio1.com.